Hello, my name is Haze, and this is a workshop that I created specifically for MilSim, but it's still relevant to leadership overall, and I thought I would make a video presentation of this and disseminate it out on this channel. I wasn't able to find the original copy of this, so I can't edit out some of the MilSim specific things and fix some of the different grammar and spelling errors that I found when reviewing this. So I apologize for that, but still I'll do my best to present this in a way that all leaders will be able to find some benefit from it. So with that being said, let's get cracking. So the breakdown of this is you have three parts: the leader and their purpose, and there's like a couple of different parts of that section. Then the physiology of a leader, where I'll briefly talk about some of the core foundations of leadership, and then I'll go into like what makes an incompetent leader and what makes a good leader. Many of us could probably spot out a bad leader pretty easily, and we unfortunately have probably interacted with one or have been led by a bad leader. But then I'll also talk about a good leader, and then I will go over some different tools and mental frameworks that you can use to be a good leader or be a better leader. All this different stuff I've used and applied, but I'll talk about that later. So yeah, the purpose of this is just to talk about some leadership fundamentals. I don't talk about how to solve specific leadership problems because there's an infinite amount of those and that would take forever. I'm just going to talk about the overall concepts and principles that you can take away from this and then use in solving any leadership problem. So yeah, teaching how to fish versus giving the fish, I guess, is one way to look at this. I'll skip some of the about me, and I'll skip, some of these tips are tailored for the live workshop, but no one can really ask questions here, so that's a little bit irrelevant. And I guess you could take notes, but this is going to be in video form, so you can always reference back to this. But if you want to take notes, feel free to do so. And one thing I will say is try and connect some of these different things with what you're going through as a leader. So if you're thinking about starting up a MilSim community or thinking about starting up a gaming community, think about how some of these things will become relevant for you or how they are relevant for you. If you're in a leadership position in a community already, how are these things relevant for your specific role and your specific game and community? So just try and think about how some of these different concepts relate to you in your experiences and your current roles, if you have any, in a gaming community. So what is leadership? It's the ability of an individual or a group of individuals to influence and guide followers or other members of an organization. You're not a leader just based off of your title. Like, some people are leaders based off of their title, but there's different levels of leadership that I'll talk about. So you don't have to be a de facto leader to be a leader. You can be a regular member in a community and still be considered a leader. If, like what the definition says in that first bullet point, if you're just a regular individual and you influence and guide people or members of an organization, you're leading. So if you have like some sort of influence or you're guiding others, you're a leader. So I just wanted to put that out there. By leadership, it doesn't mean specifically like a fire team leader or a leader of this group or this marketing department or a leader of this thing. Like, it's anyone that influences and guides. Oh, and the one last thing, this last bullet point, leadership is also a part of you as an individual, so leading yourself. And I believe that if you can lead yourself well, then you'll have a better time leading others. If you are unable to lead yourself, like your own life is in disarray. You can't lead yourself, like your physical health is bad, your mental health is bad, your job situation is bad, your relationships are bad, like you're unable to lead a good life and lead yourself, then your ability to lead others probably is not good. I mean, you might have good decision. I don't know. Maybe you read a lot about leadership and you don't apply it to your own life, but like, you know what you should be doing. And you talk to other people about it. You see that often on social media, but you talk to other people about it. And I mean, that might be all fine and dandy, but people will not take you seriously if they see that you're not applying those leadership principles yourself. So yeah, leadership also involves the individual. Which I guess I should go back to explain some of my background so then you guys don't think I'm just yapping. Okay. So at this point it's not 3,000, it's like 4,500 hours, I think. I've done some leadership stuff within the gaming community and leadership stuff in real life, both in work, extracurriculars, in school. I've done leadership stuff. I've started up like a club. I've done like student government. I've been in leadership roles at work. Within like the gaming community, I've started up a community called the Academy, which was focused on disseminating MilSim related knowledge, which is where I posted this initially, this workshop. And then I've been in a variety of leadership positions within MilSim communities and also 5M. So my main two games that I've gained a lot of this experience from was GTA Roleplay and then also Arma 3 MilSim. But yeah, a lot of this stuff, well, all of this stuff I have thought about and applied both successfully and unsuccessfully to just different leadership principles. So yeah, there's some credibility. So back to this. So there's 5 different levels of leadership. This is coming from a book called I don't know if it's a book, but this is from John Maxwell. The 5 levels of leadership. So at the bottom is the worst. You don't want to be there. And at the top, number 5 is the best. So at the bottom, that's a leader that you lead, and people follow you because they have to follow you. Like, it's positional leadership, as it says there. You're the boss, they're the leader, or they're the followers. They have to do it because that's just how it is. You don't want to be at that level. You might start at that level, but you don't want to be there. Level 2 is the people want to follow you. They believe in you. They trust you. And you have like some respect. So you have like a relationship with the people and they like you and they want to follow you. You're doing better. So from 1 to 2, you're doing good things. Number 3, they follow you because of what you've done for the organization. So maybe you're a leader that's respected. You've done some really cool things. I don't know. You led a really good marketing campaign that brought in like hundreds of people. Maybe you have done like some really good training, exercises and training things that have helped a lot of, helped out the organization. So that's that level of leadership. This next one is on individual level. So not what you've done for the organization, but people follow you because of what you have done for them as an individual. So say that you have helped and mentored people to help them get better at their respective roles. That's that level 4 level of leadership. And then level 5 is people follow you because of who you are and what you represent. So like your values, people follow you because of the type of person you are and the type of person that you represent. That is the highest level of leadership that I believe all should be striving for. So yeah, I think this is just something that when I learned about it, I tried to think about this when I'm leading. Like, okay, why are people following me? as a leader? Are they doing it because of like they just need to? Or are they doing it because of like maybe I've done some stuff for them? But yeah, I think this is just a really good thing to think about. So I wanted to share. So the 5 levels of leadership. There's just another diagram of it. Again, it references Maxwell because that's the original person that came up with this. But yeah, this was a workshop. So throughout the workshop, I had some exercises. So if you want to do this, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Yeah, I will say when it comes to this, I said here in Milsim, it's like 1 to 2. I would say, yeah, I would say it's like 1 to 3, actually. It doesn't really take a lot of hard work to get to the level 2. Like, just don't be a bad person. Like, be cool. Like, be a good guy or a good gal, and you'll be good to go to get to level 2. But yeah, I would say people are in that like 1 to 3 range. Yeah, and then yeah, so that's that section. So leadership. So this breaks down the different aspects of leadership. And I found this graphic, and I think it does a good job of, like, I guess, breaking down some of the different components. So you have guidance. You provide guidance. You provide solutions. You provide a vision. I guess you incorporate and you encourage teamwork. You give a direction. You provide strategy. You communicate effectively, and you give goals. So these different things, I think, was for 7 things here. 8 things here. Yeah, so I'll go through these one at a time. So with the guidance, you coach people. This is a part where you can get to some of the higher level of leadership that I was talking about with the Maxwell. But you coach and guide people, and you mentor people to help them get to where they need to be. When it comes to solutions, you provide good solutions that help that team get to where they need to be. Solutions related to, like I say here, retention, recruitment, training, onboarding, morale, maturity, member apathy, whatever. I mean, there's all sorts of different problems that communities can be facing. And just providing good solutions is a part of being a good leader. This could be done at a tactical level and a strategic level. I'll talk about the difference later on, but yeah, this involves both levels, not just being a good strategic solution generator. This also involves like the tactical level. So vision, this one's pretty important and I think is neglected, but thinking about and planning for the future with like imagination and wisdom. So you could do this at a team level and the unit level. At the team level, you're thinking just like several steps ahead for your team. Well, actually, I think it's a little bit different. But you're thinking about like the future that you want for your team. Then at the unit level, it's something similar, but it's for the whole like unit or for the whole community. I wanted to share this link here. It talks about the core values, talks about a mission statement and a vision. So sometimes people get, and myself included, get mission statements and the vision confused. And I think this is a good way of outlining the difference. So a mission statement deals with the why an organization exists, and the vision outlines what that existence will eventually look like. So here's a mission statement offering all women and men worldwide the best of cosmetics, innovation in time of quality, efficacy, and safety, or in terms of. So that's a mission, and then a vision is to be one of the world's leading producers. So like what we plan to be, or like in the future world, what do we want it to be like? And for Disney, they want to be the leading producer and provider of entertainment and information. This talks about some different tactics on how to write a vision statement. But yeah, I think just having a vision for the future, like, all right, this is what we are shooting for, is pretty important to have on the leadership level. Because on a recruiting and marketing level, people like to be a part of a story. And when you have a vision outlined of like, all right, we are working towards this vision, and people like that vision, then they can like join that story and be a part of that journey. And people like that. People don't really like being a part of just like something that's ambiguous and, I don't know, aimless. People like something with purpose. So writing out and dictating that vision is a part of that. Teamwork, just ensuring that everyone plays well together and everyone is a good team player, including the leader. Direction, so this takes the vision and then you point and steer the ship in the right direction towards like that vision. So providing direction and telling people what to do is the wrong way of doing it, but like effectively communicating your vision and ensuring that the community overall is steering, or your unit or your group is steering towards that vision, is direction. Strategy, this is the how you're going to be getting towards that vision. I guess in the Milsom sense, that's like mission planning. How are we going to get towards our like goal? So just strategy. And then for communication, just effectively communicating. I'll talk about some of this a little bit later when it comes to some of the methodologies. There's something called the 4 laws of combat that I'll talk about that encompasses a lot of this into just 4 steps. Like if you do the 4 steps, then you'll encompass a lot of these things. I guess not the 4 steps, but if you employ the 4 principles, then it will encompass a lot of these things. Just effectively communicate, outline goals well, and set actionable goals, not too big, not too small. So guidance, solutions, vision, teamwork, direction, strategy, communication, goals. Again, this is just something that you could think about when it comes to leadership, and like assess yourself every now and then to think about, okay, how well am I providing guidance and like mentoring people? How well am I effectively communicating the vision? How well am I working together with other people? How well are the people that I'm leading working well together? Stuff like that. So this is a part of exercise 2. Again, if you want to do that, you can. So physiology of a leader, I'm going to kind of skim through this because it gets pretty deep in the weeds. If you want to pause and read through this, you can. I might make a video about this specifically, but I'm a student of leadership, so I kind of enjoy going down into the weeds of these things. Some people don't. But I guess I should have said in the beginning that this workshop is specifically for people that like want to have a extremely successful group and not individuals that just want to have a online gaming community that is just average. So I think the people that like want an exceptional group, like an outlier, will care about some of these different things. But so before I get into that though, I just want to say like bad leader versus good leader. Some of this stuff is a bit subjective, but I think overall there's no bad teams. There's just bad leaders. I forgot who I got that from, but I know that it was stated by Jocko Willink. But I don't know if I got it or if he got it from someone else or if I got it from someone else and he's just the one that says it most often. But from my experience, both in gaming and also in real life, is that you can have a bad team, but if you inject a good leader, it will turn that bad team into a good team. It's not really a bad team. It's just people that were led improperly. So I mean, you can have a group of people that are more of a challenge to lead properly, but I don't think there's any such thing as like a bad team. Just a leader that's unable to lead that group of people well or not. Which is a heavy burden as a leader. You can't just say, oh yeah, these guys are just bad, so this is impossible. Like, it's on you as a leader to identify the problems and come up with solutions. And yeah, that involves taking extreme ownership, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, so some ethological stuff. So I won't bore you with this, like I said, but the crux of this is that the dysfunction of so I'm going to go pretty deep in the weeds as far as what makes up a dysfunctional leader. A lot of this stemmed when I watched an episode from Jocko Willink. I should have came up with the episode level episode number, so then people could reference it. But he goes through this book called On the Psychology of Military Incompetence. I forgot who wrote the book, but I have the references at the end of here, so I'll show it. But he talks about like the psychology of, again, incompetent leaders, and it gets broken down to all these different levels. So it got me thinking, and that's why I made these slides. So there's a lot of different stuff that makes us humans. There's a lot of different, like, just core human things that drive us, like revenge, loyalty, greed, like sex, like this, like masculinity, feminism, like all, like there's these core things that just like make us, that are undeniable. Like, no matter what, you can't deny these things exist, because it's just like a part of us, as humans. And some of these things we have to fight against in order to become effective leaders. So that's one part of it. The second part is that there's a variety of different things that we learn as children, to survive, whether that's like good things or bad things, different things to cope and survive. Depending on your childhood, it could have been excellent, it could have been bad, but nonetheless, you might have some baggage that you deal with, and you take that into your leadership, whether you know it or not. I notice this often with like younger leaders, is that they think of the world, well, actually, I would say this is most of the leaders, because most of the leaders I've interacted with in the gaming community are younger leaders, like in their upper teens, lower 20s, maybe mid 20s. So basically people that are still figuring out life, myself included. But yeah, there's a lot of different stuff that we are going through or went through as children that we're still wrangling with, that will impact how we think and how we lead people. For example, say that you were a child and you grew up in an abusive like household, or I don't know, your father or your mother were just like really hard on you, and that's how you think leadership is. Then when you get into a leadership role, that's how you lead. It's like with a heavy hand and aggressively. That may or may not be the best way to lead. I'll tell you, it likely is not the best way to lead. Aggressive leadership and like heavy-handed leadership is probably not the best way to lead. There's some times when like being aggressive and like putting your foot down are like important, but like if that's all you do, then that's probably not the best. I know Jocko talks about being default aggressive, which that's I'm talking about like a different level of aggression. I'm talking like negative aggression, like hate, like bad emotional aggression. So yeah, I mean, that's just one example, but there's these different things that you need to think about that impact you as a leader. And with your understanding of this, you need to take knowledge of it and then understand, okay, I have these like deficiencies or things that I'm working through. How can I counteract these and be a better leader? So then you can have more control of these. And these things are both conscious and subconscious. So yeah. And another thing is that this is a battle that everyone faces. I don't really think, I could be wrong, I'm no psychologist, I didn't study this, but I don't think anyone is immune to these conflicts. Whether it's the childhood stuff or it's the stuff that just like is core to us as far as like loyalty, revenge, like tribe mentality, all these different things, like ego, some of these things that are just a part of us that we have to battle. I don't think anyone's immune to these things. So, yeah, but I think it's good as a leader to understand that these are things to just know and to try and control in the best way that we can. Okay, so in a competence leader, I break this down into 6 different bullet points. So egotistical, I would say this is likely the biggest red flag, and you might have seen this before. A leader that's untrusting, which leads to invulnerability. A leader that lacks commitment, which leads to ambiguity. A leader that is in fear of conflict avoidant, which creates artificial harmony. Avoidance of accountability, which leads to low standards. And then a closed-minded leader, which leads to a leader that is mentally caged and leads to restricted progress. So my guess is that if you've seen failed leadership, it involves one of these 6 things. At least in my experience, if I see poor leadership, it involves one of these 6 things. Like maybe the leader just doesn't really seem to care enough about the goal. Like they're just doing it like part-time. And it's like, if it succeeds, okay. If it fails, it's okay. I'll just join one of my friends' groups. That's a lack of commitment. Untrusting, like if a leader is unable to be vulnerable with their people, then that will be a problem. And ego, of course, I know everything, you know nothing, follow me, my way is the highway, just classic ego stuff. Fear of conflict, like they don't want to, I guess, butt heads with anyone to resolve problems or have any sort of conflict where emotions might spike. So instead of facing that conflict, there's this artificial harmony. I mean, me personally, I have a problem with that, but I'm trying to get better with it. But yeah, so there's a variety of these different things that I'm sure you have experienced. But yeah, I think it's, again, good to have these things on your radar so then you can assess yourself and say, okay, actually, I think I am having like this issue. Yeah. So a good leader is, I think I just copy pasted some of these and like flip the words. So the opposite of like being egotistical is being humble. But yeah, so the first thing is humble. Again, that's the number 1 trait that I think is really beneficial. 2 is being a trusting leader. Openness, transparency, vulnerability, being committed. There's going to be less ambiguity because you actually want it to succeed. So you're going to like be more pointed, and goal oriented about this and more certainty of the tasks that you give out. There will be more certainty of the tasks that you give out. You'll be an advocate for healthy conflict. So like open feedback, growth, learning is like core to the leadership and the community, and people value getting feedback. Feedback happens well. It isn't like a "you're shit, I'm great, you need to like change," or you get fired type of feedback. It's like a good feedback. Accountability focused. So standards for everyone are kept across the board, no matter if you're friends with them, if you're not friends with them, if like someone has 0 years of experience versus like 50 years of experience. The standard is a standard, and that is kept across the board, and everyone is held accountable to those standards, including the leader themselves. And that plays hand in hand with the feedback, ensuring that people are getting feedback to know that like, hey, I think you're slacking. blah, 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 blah. Being selfless, so acting for the greater good and not for themselves, and being open-minded, open to new ideas and perspectives, which plays hand in hand with humility and ego. Exercise 3, again, you could pause and do some of these if you would like. So the leadership workshop, I'll start this off by basically continuing with some of this breakdown of the incompetence of, leadership, or how leaders can become incompetent. And then I'll start going into some good tools. So the first part is, I guess first thing I'll talk about is strategic versus tactical. Earlier I said I'll talk about this, so here we are. So strategic level is thinking about things at a more macro level. Tactical is more like, what are we going to be doing right now? So strategic, let's say I run a 5M GTA 5 community. At a strategic level, this would be thinking, okay, how do I need to position us to be good in the 5M marketplace, or like do very well? So I think we need to be setting up some social media accounts, because when we get to the point of wanting to launch, we're going to need like some presence out there. So I think we need to start getting that set up. Or maybe we're having a recruitment. We're having a problem with this leader or this other leader. Maybe we're having a leadership problem overall. Or maybe I'm sensing that there might be a leadership problem happening because we're getting a whole bunch of new leaders. How can we be proactive about this and set up a nice training pipeline for leaders? I have some examples here: how to rebrand a unit, how to hire into a leadership role, just like some more macro things. And then tactical is like the actual tasks that are happening in game. This is maybe like a react to contact drill in MilSim. But yeah, like the actual things that you're doing. So you have the strategic level and the tactical level. Both are important for leadership, but leadership lies more in the strategic planning side, and then the tactical side is more of like what the other people do, like I guess the followers, but the other members of the team do. But leadership's involved in both. Okay, so this one's a doozy, and I'll break this down. But this is the military decision model. So this encompasses before, during, and after the making of a military decision. So this pertains to military, but I think it's relevant to just overall thinking about like inputs and like noise and how this loop works. So first, I'll state the source. So this came from On the Psychology of Military Incompetence, the book. I don't think I copy and pasted this. I think I recreated the model, the diagram that was in the book, but this was from the book. Okay, so this goes from the left to the right. So I'll use my cursor here. You have these inputs. So this first box is information about the enemy and your own troops. So this could be information about your teams, like the marketing team, information about your elements, information about the enemy. So the people that you're competing against, the other communities, the other teams. So that's just information like their strength, their disposition, their morale, their intentions, their supplies, like their servers, their technology stack, stuff like that, their supplies, their capabilities, etc. So knowing that about yourself and knowing that about your enemy. And then you have some miscellaneous things. So weather forecast, which doesn't really matter, but I guess that would be like the weather of the market. So the market overall, I guess the gaming market, like how is it doing well? Is it doing bad? If you're in a specific game like GTA, like how's GTA doing? Is it doing well? Is it doing bad as a game? Or more people coming in, more people coming out, like leaving the community, stuff like that. And you could get some of these stats from like Steam And there's some other sources out there where you can figure out like the stats of the game and like when people are joining, when people are like not really joining, when people are playing, stuff like that. But yeah, some of this stuff isn't really relevant to gaming. Like the time of the year is relevant because you have sales and that will impact marketing and onboarding. Moons and tides don't really work. I guess you could probably get real deep in the weeds and I don't know, maybe statistically full moons, people like to play. Full moons, there's light outside, people like to be outside more. I don't know, there's more light, people may like to be outside more. As opposed to like a darker night, people might want to be inside and play games. I don't know. Yeah, just some external things, miscellaneous things. But nonetheless, these things get put through this pre-processing unit where you take the information, and then it gets sent to the receiver where you have these nodes of information. Then you also have the inputs. So, like the broad strategy of your community, the directives from, I guess, the higher command in your community if you're like leading one of the units. But yeah, just the overall strategy, mission, vision, values, and all that stuff for the community gets fed in here. So you have that, and then you have these, and all that gets put into this mental store. So, okay, now I know these things. They're in my brain. I know that I'm working with these different pieces of information, whether it's miscellaneous, it's about us, it's about them. I understand like the goals of the community. I understand these different things. I also understand, I'm also working in some of my previous experience into this. So you have all this information in like your brain, the memory store. Next you go on to decision process. So if you have a problem, you need to make a decision. You take in all this different stuff from your memory and you make a decision. Then you output something. I forgot exactly what this heroic, managerial, and technical. I'm guessing it's just like a technical solution, a managerial solution. Heroic, I'm not really sure what that's all about. Maybe it's a heroic solution. It's exceptional. I don't know. But you have some sort of output and then you get a result. Like, is it good? Is it bad? Did it fix the problem? Did it not fix the problem? Did it make it worse? So on and so forth. And then you go through this dotted line of feedback. You get feedback and then that gets put back in the receiver. And then you begin the loop again. You get that feedback and then you're continuing with that knowledge that you had. It's still in the memory store. So you get that feedback. You add that to the memory. You add that to like your thinking. And then you're like, okay, I have all these different things about us, about them, about the miscellaneous things, about the moon, about like the strategy, the vision, all that stuff. And now we just ran a loop iteration and now I got some feedback. Now, when I get to the next decision making step, I'm going to use that feedback and all that extra information to make a better decision. And you just keep doing that over and over and over again. So that's this loop. Now, what you have down here is noise, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, I guess that's just the basics. The key points here is to understand the inputs and the noise aspects. Acquisition of knowledge through the inputs and feedback helps reduce ignorance and thus uncertainty. So ignorance is just not knowing what you don't know. And when you have good information coming in from the inputs and you have good feedback, then that reduces that ignorance. And then now you know more stuff, and then thus that decreases the uncertainty of your situation. That's why intelligence and information is very important when it comes to, I guess, the military decision-making process, because it reduces the amount of like guessing and you become more certain about, okay, this is the right decision to make because we know enough information. We know plenty of information to be certain about this. That still applies to just general communities. Like if you know more about your people, you know more about like the people in your ecosystem, like that you're competing against for members. If you know about some of these, like the game environment, you know about some of these miscellaneous things, then your decisions about, do we need to, start up a marketing department. Do we need to change up our onboarding process? Do we need to become more relaxed when it comes to the role play, or do we need to become more serious? Like, some of these different things become more certain when you have more information about the stuff relevant to that. So yeah, that's what that's basically saying. An unlikely or unexpected fact contains more information. So if you didn't know that, I don't know, a competitor just spun up 3 other communities, that contains more information and reduces more uncertainty than ones that you already expected, because the ones that you expected, you already have baked those in to your decision-making process, most likely, as opposed to the ones that you never knew about. Which, I mean, that just makes sense. And a really important thing to think about is an unexpected fact is less likely to be absorbed or less readily absorbed than one which was expected. And that could be because it clashes with your preconceptions and your wishes and your desires. Like, maybe you're like, okay, I think that we need to set up a more taxing onboarding process when we vet people to enter our community. And then you do some research and you realize that the really successful communities have, I don't know, really loose standards for entering. That clashes with your preconceived or your preconceptions and maybe your wishes. And thus you'll be less readily, may less readily be absorbed, or you're less likely to absorb that fact, as opposed to if it were to confirm your preconceptions and your wishes. So that's why having a closed mind versus an open mind is really important. And then that last bullet point, instead, think of it as reducing uncertainty and ignorance. So yeah, now you know something that you didn't know, and that reduces the uncertainty, reduces your ignorance. You should embrace new information and consider it thoughtfully. Just have an open mind, be humble, don't be an egotistical individual. Just embrace new information, consider it thoughtfully. No matter what, the world is the world. You can't, just because of how you want to think, that doesn't change how the world is or how that environment that you're managing in is. Like, it is what it is. So if you take in facts and it collides with how you want to think the world is, and you just ignore it, you're going to fail. Because then you're just operating in this fake world that you want to believe is right versus the world that is how it is. So that's why it's very, very important to have an open mind, and to set your ego aside and embrace new ideas and consider them thoughtfully. Because at the end of the day, if what you want is for the community to succeed, for your product to sell, for people to join, you need to embrace the reality of situations and understand the world you're playing in and play that game. So I really want to emphasize that, because that's a problem. I've seen I've seen several units fail because of that. It's a common problem. So I really wanted to emphasize that. Now, when it comes to the inputs, well, that was the inputs, I guess. And this is talking about the noise. So, understand the internal and external noise that can impact your decision making, whether it's in-game matters or out-of-game matters, leading the community, leading the Discord, whatever. I'll go back to this, and I'll zoom in here. So down here at the bottom, you see we have external noise and internal noise, and it's interfering with this part, the feedback part, and also the memory. So external noise is sources of bias and interference into this process. So that could be enemy actions, the enemy just launched this new marketing campaign. What are we going to do about it? Or maybe you have inadequate intelligence sources. Maybe the place that you're getting your information from is unreliable. That could be a problem. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe your leadership is just not active. That's an issue that could play a big part in this. And then internal noise is stuff internal to you as an individual. So again, this was mainly centered around the military, and as you increase in age, you become like a higher rank and you make decisions that have greater impact on more lives. So some of these things show like defective senses or memory, like that's an issue when you get generals that are aging. So yeah, just like the mental degradation. But you have stuff like your emotion plays part in this, rigidity in who you are and like what you believe and like how you think. So open-minded versus closed-minded. Stress will impact you. Dissonance, alcoholism, neurosis, and a variety of different things. These internal issues again plays back to when I was talking about the concepts of understanding the core fundamentals of being a human and understanding the different struggles that you might be going through internally, whether it's conscious or unconscious, that might be impacting your decision-making process. That is where this internal noise comes in. That's what I was referencing. So yeah, you have this external noise and internal noise that will impact all these different nodes and impact the feedback. Like if you're really stressed and you realize, I don't know, maybe the results were not what you wanted them to be, but you're really stressed and you don't really take in the feedback well, or you interpret the feedback in a way that wasn't intended to be interpreted as, then the feedback will get soured and then it will ruin this loop. Or I guess it will poison the loop. So yeah, these pieces of noise will impact this at all the different parts. So just keep that in mind. So now onto the part of how to solve problems. So I talked a lot about what it means to be a leader. I talked about like what makes a good leader, what makes a bad leader, some of the different levels of leadership. But you might say, okay, well, Haze, how do I actually lead then? How do I, like, that's a lot of nice information. Maybe it's shit information. Maybe I'm just watching this video so I can learn how to like make better decisions. Well, now we're getting to that point. So again, like I said, teaching how to fish versus giving fish. I'm not going to talk about specific problems. I'm going to talk about processes to tackle, just general gaming community, or like personal problems that you face along your journey, both strategic and tactical. And then, yeah. So I'll talk about the OODA Loop, Jocko's Laws of Combat, and Jocko's Guide for New Leaders. We'll go from there. So first we'll start off with the OODA Loop. And the OODA stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. This is a loop. So the first thing is observe. So data collection, you're observing something, you're taking in input from a variety of different sources. Like if you're in game, it will likely be through your eyes, through your ears. You won't be able to smell anything because you're in a game, but you'll hear things, you'll see things. And then you will orient yourself. So take that information, analyze it, enrich it, get it into a form that you understand. And then with that information, go to step 3 and make a decision. So make the best available decision based off the information that you have. And then do it is the last step. Act on it. And then you loop back to the front. You determine if that decision was good or bad. And then you make observations. Like maybe you're like, okay, we're getting shot at. I have people on my team with guns. We could shoot back at them. let's just shoot back at them. And we shoot back at them. They shoot back at us. Like, oh, they shoot back at us. You observe that they shoot back at us. And you're like, okay, what can we do now? It's just this looping iteration thing. And this is a skill that you just get better at over time. Like, in order to get good at this, you can't just read about it. You have to actually do it. So I know in Muslim communities, they get practice doing this through like FTXs, and operations and all that fun stuff. Leadership gets, some good iteration on making some good decision-making processes through this OODA loop. But yeah, I think this is a good, way, or I guess a good way to think about how to make decisions, especially like tactical decisions, but it's also useful in strategic decisions. But I've used this, I'd say I think about using this more often on the tactical level than on the strategic level. On the strategic level, I still use this, but I think more about, the 4 laws of combat, which I'll talk about later. So that's that. And I guess I talk about it here. Observe, which is collecting the data, orient, decide, act, and then you have the feedback. So you go back to the front of the loop. This is a video from Echelon Front that breaks it down. I guess you can't really see this fully, but I guess this is the video. Let me zoom in. I believe this is Dave Burke. Good deal, Dave. But this says Echelon Front, OODA Loop, Dave Burke. So if you want to find this video and watch it, feel free to do so. So some examples, on the tactical level, like in game, your fire team is moving in a wedge through the forest. Fire team member yells, enemy infantry northwest 100 meters. Everyone moves to cover, faces the contact, and engages, because that's just, you guys are well practiced and you guys have battle drills. Then you as a leader orient yourself. So takes in information about the enemy, the friendlies, the situation around him or herself. You filter out the unnecessary stuff. Like maybe there's a bunny running across the field. That's irrelevant unless it's like a whole bunch of bunnies running across the field, then you might want to take that in. And then you make a decision. You decide that a center peel to the rear, to then get on the line will be, well, I don't know if that's actually a very good decision, but this is the decision that the fire team leader made in this example. To get a center peel rear to get on the line, will be the best action, given the information that they've taken in. And so the action that the leader yells center peel to hay bales southeast go. And then they do it, you get feedback, and then based off of that, you can keep iterating on this. On the strategic level, you observe that there is a vacancy in a key leadership role. Maybe your community manager, you want a community manager, or maybe you had a community manager. They recently left, and now you need to fill that role up. That's your observation. So orient the community leader, takes the information on the needs of the position. You screen possible candidates. You take unit commander considers why last position. Well, that's an error in grammar, but you consider why the last holder left the position, and then you decide to hire, John Doe, and then you also decide to make an announcement about it, and then you act on it. This is like a very macro. I don't really think, looking back at this, I don't know if this is a really good example of OODA loop, because some of these different things are OODA loops within themselves. Like screening a candidate is an OODA loop. But I guess this is, I think this can be an example of strategic. I don't know. You guys tell me in the comment section if this is a good example, a bad example. And if you have a better one, do share. But yeah, anyways. Okay, so the laws of combat this is the most important part as far as the toolkit. So if you weren't really paying attention, I would recommend paying attention here. When it comes to me personally with leadership, these are the 4 things that I try and stick to. And when I observe units and try and make recommendations about actions to be taken, so I guess consulting work, these are the 4 things that I observe and try and do a gap analysis on. How well are they doing when it comes to covering and moving? How well are they doing with effective communication, prioritizing and execute, and their decentralized command? How well are they doing with these different things? So yeah, this is very important, at least in my eyes. Some people might disagree, but this was developed by a guy named Jocko, a retired Navy SEAL officer. And yeah, another methodology used to help you make strategic and tactical decisions. I guess I have a quote here. It is crucial, particularly for leaders at the top of the organization, to pull themselves off the front lines, step back, and maintain the strategic picture. In order to do that, you need to employ these 4 things. Cover and move, simple, prioritize and execute, and decentralized command. If you have decentralized command, that allows that leader to pull themselves off the front lines, or pull themselves out of micromanaging and doing the day-to-day tactical stuff, and allows them to maintain the strategic picture and look up and out and do the things that only they can be doing in their position as a leader. So I think I talk about, I break it down. So first is cover and move. This is the ability for teams to work together to accomplish tasks. So in the 5M community, this involves, there's many different examples of this, but say I am the leader of a SWAT team in the LSPD in 5M. Then I am needing to work with the air unit in order to do some stuff, right? The SWAT team might need to do infill with the air, the air, either airplanes or the helicopters. So you're going to have to do some covering and moving and working together as a team in order to make that happen. And that involves relationships. So yeah, just covering and moving and working together to accomplish goals and working and creating solid relationships amongst the teams is very important. And you have to think what this second, or I guess what 1.b says, is if the team fails, everyone fails. Or if the collective fails, then everyone fails. You can't just think of you and yourself. I can't just think of me and my SWAT team, and it's the SWAT team versus the world. That's not how it works. I have to work with my SWAT team, with the other groups, to ensure that the overall mission of the LSPD is achieved. So yeah, cover and move. The second part is, let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Well, I guess I'll include this. Yeah, actually I won't. Okay, yeah, so cover and move is number 1, working with other teams, providing support. Second is regarding communication. This involves effectively communicating the intent, the commander's intent, what you expect from people. This has to be done in a simple way, so it can't be overly complex, because people need to be able to understand it. It needs to be clearly done, so proper English, proper spelling, proper grammar, so then there's no excuse of, well, I didn't really get what you were saying because there was no comma, or there was a comma, stuff like that. And it needs to be concise. So the opposite of this video. But yeah, it needs to be concise, and it can't be dragged on. So simple, clear, concise, and it needs to be in a way, or presented in a way, that people understand. You can't just put it out there in a way that you understand and you think people will understand, and just say, okay, cool, you guys read this, understand it, and then I don't know, continue. But you need to ensure that people actually understand what you're putting out there. So yeah, make sure it's clear, concise, and it's simple, and that people are actually understanding the information and are comprehending the message, whether that's you outlining the vision, outlining the mission, outlining the values, outlining like the core commander's intent about what you plan to achieve. I think those things I just listed are the minimums. You need to be outlining those things. But if you're trying to outline other things, just making sure that it's being done in a way that people are understanding and comprehending it. Because if they don't comprehend it, then they're not going to be able to like use it. So yeah, at this point, you got a team that's able to cover and move, work together. So teamwork is going well. Relationships are being worked and done well. And then you have teams where the leaders are effectively communicating their intent and what they should be doing overall as a team. And then on third, this is when you prioritize and execute. So you might be like really deep in the weeds, and you might have like all these different tasks going on, maybe these competing things. Like you just started up this new, I don't know, I'll go back to I'll do a more macro thing. Let's say I'm spinning up a onboarding process for my community, and like it's brand new, like the leader or the community manager was like, hey, you need to set up this onboarding process. And they communicated well. Like they said, we expect X, Y, and Z type of people. And we want it to be like this long maybe, or we don't want it to be like this long. But we're able to like work on that, like whatever. So they communicated it effectively about their intent. But I have a whole bunch of different stuff that I could be doing, like creating documents, creating the in-game experience, like maybe making the map or like moving the assets around, making the space, coming up with, I don't know, onboarding trainers, training the trainers, coming up with a curriculum, all these different things. And what you need to do is, what it says here, relax, look around, make a call. So prioritize those different tasks, figure out which one is a higher priority versus lower priority, figure out which is a prereq for another task. So that task needs to be done before the other. And just basically prioritize the tasks and then execute one at a time. Bang, 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 bang. Basically just don't get lost in the sauce. Prioritize and execute. So that's that. So at this point, you now have a team then that can cover and move, that can communicate effectively. Like people know what the intent is. They understand like the vision. They understand like what we're trying to do here, whether it's in our little SWAT team, whether it's in the training of the detachment, whether it's like the community overall. Everyone knows like what the overall goal is. And then people understand how to prioritize and execute the tasks. Once you have these three things, then you can move on to the decentralized command, which in my opinion is when leadership becomes fun. This is when everyone becomes a leader. So say that I am, again, I guess leading the training group. The community manager said, hey, Haze, lead this training. And I said, okay, I understand what you said. I understand like your intent, what you're trying to achieve. So simple as checked. I understand that I can work with some of these other teams and some of these other elements to help get this done. Maybe I need to work with recruitment. Maybe I need to work with some of the teams to figure out exactly what type of people they want entering their group after the onboarding, like the training process. Or maybe there's like some ongoing training needs that need to be met that I can help them with. So just covering moving, making relationships. I come up with like some different tasks and I prioritize them and I execute them based on this. So now when it comes to decentralized command, I can onboard people and give them the ability to just take ownership of different parts of this. So I understand these things, and then now I need to ensure that the people beneath me also understand like the intent of what we're trying to do. Like, hey guys, I got tasked with creating this like onboarding process, this training onboarding process. I brought you guys on board to help with this. This is our overall goals. We want to try and achieve this like for this month. Here are the different things. I prioritize some of these different things based on what the intent is. Like they need to have like this core training feature or they whatever. So like some of these things are prioritized, and I'm going to give you guys the autonomy to like do this on your own. Or I guess you don't even really need to tell them like, hey, I'm going to give you the autonomy. But if you like simply communicate, hey, this is the goal, this is what we're trying to do here, and the training like detachment, then people beneath you are like, okay, yeah, cool, this is what Haze is trying to have us accomplish. I'm on board, I'm down. What can I do to help get us there? And they will if you give them the freedom, which I would, then they can just like go out and about and do like what they need to do to reach that goal. And then you as a leader would just like check in with them every now and then, depending on the person. And then just go from there, ensuring that people are staying within the limits. People aren't veering out too far outside the path, and everyone's just working towards that goal. But if you clearly outline the end state and like your intent well enough and you communicate effectively, then that should be going pretty smoothly. But yeah, basically everyone leads themselves. You have these autonomous units. Everyone is like an autonomous unit, and it's like a decentralized command. Instead of you micromanaging and telling everyone, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. I'll help you with this, I'll help you with that. And you're just getting way too overly involved. That's just a problem. So yeah, that's when you have people that like what the Bravo point says, they don't wait for orders. They understand what needs to be done and they just go out and do it. I've been in teams where, well, in real life and also in game, I've been in like teams, communities, whatever, where I've had the opportunity to be a part of like a decentralized team where I got the intent from the people above me and I was like, okay, yeah, cool. And then I was able to just like go out and do stuff. Every now and then I'd be like, hey, is it fine if I like do this? Like, can I like take our team and like go out training and do this? Can we spend some extra time on our own, like doing this? Can we like every now and then I would just check in just to make sure that like I was on point, but I was able to just like do whatever I wanted to do because they knew that what I was doing was getting towards the goal that they wanted. And they knew that they didn't have to micromanage. They knew that, hey, Haze is just going to get after it. And although the way might not be their way, it is a way and it gets to the end state, which that's a whole nother conversation about like leadership capital and wanting things to be done your way versus other people's way. But yeah, I might make a video about that. But yeah, those are the 4 laws. And if you follow these, I mentioned before that I think there were those 8 different leadership things like direction, vision, communication, goals. If you follow these 4 things here, these 4 principles, it encompasses a lot of those. So yeah, these are the 4 laws of combat that I wish more leaders knew about and followed. Because a lot of communities would be way more successful if they followed these 4 things here. They're not easy to do, but they're possible. It's not impossible stuff. I've done it and I'm not like very smart. So, and I feel like any leader is able to do this. And then here I just take some quotes. So I guess cover and move. Smaller teams within the team get so focused on their immediate tasks, they forget about what others are doing. So yeah, just working with others, being aware about what others are doing. Simple. As a leader, it doesn't matter how well you feel you have presented the information or communicated an order, plan, tactic, strategy. If your team doesn't get it, you have not kept things simple and you have failed. So, I said that before. It needs to be done in a way that people understand. If they don't understand it, then it doesn't work. Prioritize and execute. Crucial, particularly for leaders at the top of the organization to pull themselves off the firing line, the front lines, step back and maintain the strategic picture. And then for the decentralized command, in chaotic, dynamic, and rapidly changing environments, leaders at all levels must be empowered to make decisions. Yeah. So there's some quotes from the book. The book is, I have it here, Leadership Strategy and Tactics by Jocko Willink. This is the first version. I know that recently he came out with another version, which I will likely get. But yeah, this is a very good book. I would recommend getting it. This book right here. Yeah, so that's the laws of combat. And I will add on some stuff to that as well. There's two different things. Now I lost the page. But there's two different things that are tangential to that. So Jocko talks about the 4 laws of combat, and then he also talks about 2 additional pieces that leaders need to be considering. So one is the dichotomy of leadership, and the other one is extreme ownership. So the dichotomy of leadership is when you have situations where, depending on the situation, you might need to be more of something or less of something. So in some situations, your ego might need to be more involved or less involved, or your communication might need to be higher or lower, or your involvement in a project might need to be higher or lower, or just different. But you have, with all these different things, just different sliders. So there's this dichotomy, because you could say, well, humility is important, but also you need to be confident. So you can't be so humble that you're just a pushover, and people could just walk all over you. Like, you need to be confident. So you need some level of ego, but it can't be so much that like your mind is closed and you're just a bad person to work with. So there's this slider here that you need to work with. So yeah, that's one thing to keep in mind, is that depending on the situation, you might need more or less of something. There is no like perfect amount of communication, or perfect amount of ego, or perfect amount of listening, or perfect amount of whatever, of like decisiveness. Like, you want someone that is decisive, but sometimes you just need to like step back and make other people, or allow or empower other people to make those decisions, instead of you stepping in and making those decisions for others. So yeah, there's this dichotomy. And then the second piece, which I think is very important, is extreme ownership, which Jocko talks about this all the time. Like, if you know anything about Jocko, he's all about extreme ownership. I think he wrote a book just like Extreme Ownership is the title of the book. But this is where you take ownership of problems and things at an extreme level, not just at a regular level, at an extreme level. And the reason why he says extreme is because if you were to just take ownership, then you would likely not take ownership of things that you should be taking ownership of. So that's why he says extreme. So in my mind, how I take this is try and take ownership of absolutely everything around you. How can I, in my position, whatever that is, take ownership and take responsibility of this problem and help resolve the problem? For example, I could just be a regular member of a community, not be in any sort of leadership role, any like whitelisted roles or anything like that. I'm just a regular member. I just play on the server every now and then. And that's it. But let's just say that there's an issue within the community of, member retention. Like, a lot of members are leaving. What I can do is I could say, not my problem. I'm just a regular member. That's not taking ownership. Taking ownership, extreme ownership, is saying, okay, I noticed that this community is having this problem. I'm in this community. I want it to succeed. How can I help? Maybe I could provide some feedback about how I'm experiencing the server. Maybe that is why, maybe that feedback can help them determine better ways of how to curate the community experience to keep people in. Or maybe I have previous experience, and I could talk with like some leaders and share like what I know about like member retention. But basically, don't just ignore problems because it's not under your domain. Still consider it, and still consider like trying to be an individual that helps solve those problems. So that is, I guess, what I call like external extreme ownership. So like helping things external to yourself or like your group. We're taking ownership of things external to your group. Another example is, let's just say that I'll go to the SWAT team example. Then I'll go to something more macro. So let's just say that I am on the recruiting, the training team, and there's a new team that's coming up. So I'm in charge of training and onboarding people. So they just joined the community. They come to me, they get trained up, or they come to like my group, they get trained up. And then once they get trained up, then they get pushed out to one of the like operational teams of the community. So one example of this is my domain is the training, but let's say that the community, like the teams are having a problem with like leadership. They're getting a bunch of solid people out of the pipeline, but they're noticing problems with leadership. People aren't really willing to step up and lead. People aren't feeling comfortable to step up and lead. I could say, okay, well, I did my part. You're getting solid, like young people to like join or like novice people to join. Leadership development's on you. But what I would do is I would encourage someone to think, okay, well, what can I do inside my leadership pipeline to help the operational teams with their leadership? Like maybe I can add in some leadership modules or embed some like leadership thinking and frameworks. Talk about the OODA Loop, talk about the 4 laws of combat, talk about like whatever. So then when people get to the teams, they're a little bit more capable of leaders, and see if that helps. So that's another example of having an external problem and trying to resolve that problem, or I guess taking ownership of that external problem. So now with internal problems, this is when it can kind of get overwhelming depending on how many people you lead. But in my eyes, well, I don't really think this is in my eyes. I think this is just an overall leadership thing. Just because you onboard people below you to take care of problems that you've been tasked to take care of doesn't mean that you absolve yourself of the consequences of poor decision making. So say that I'm on the training, again, I'm leading the training pipeline, and one of my instructors, screams and goes crazy on one of the candidates. I can't just say, oh yeah, that wasn't me, that was the that was the cadre. I'll fire him and get rid of him, blah 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 blah. That was not me. That's it. It is you. In my mind, you might as well have been the person that yelled and screamed at the candidate. Because no matter where, like, it could be like 5 rings down the ladder, 2 rings down the ladder. If there's a problem that happens, you need to take ownership of that problem and deal with it accordingly. You don't maybe need to like talk with, you might not need to like talk with like that end person. I guess a better example of this is maybe you have, some people, I'll go back to the, marketing. Okay, so say I'm the community manager, and beneath me I have like the marketing, the training, onboarding, and some other departments. And one of the individuals inside of the marketing team posted like a bad comment on the post that they recently made, or they made like a bad post. Although I'm just the community manager, I'm not in charge of the marketing team specifically. Like there is a leader, like there's the marketing team leader, marketing director that's in charge of that. But it's still something that I need to take ownership of. So what I would do is, instead of talking directly with that guy or gal that made that bad comment, what I would do is say, hey, marketing director, marketing team leader, I noticed this comment when I was going through our feed, and I wanted to talk with you about this comment. This doesn't really seem like a good comment. Like, what's going on? And talk about it. I don't know, maybe the guy's account got hacked. Maybe the person was like drunk and made a bad decision, which it doesn't matter if you're drunk or sober. If you make a bad decision, you made a bad decision. But yeah, I don't know. You talk about it and then you break it down and you come up with a solution. But overall, you just take ownership. You can't just say, well, that's not my problem. Because I'm not leading the marketing team. I'm just a community manager. Whatever. Because if I was the owner and I saw the community manager and I was like, hey, I saw that the marketing team posted this comment and it's not really professional, and like you're leading the marketing team, like what's going on? Like the leader above me is going to be taking ownership and coming to talk to me as the marketing team lead, as the community manager. Like the owner of the community will come talk to me and say, hey, like what's going on? So I need to then go talk to the person beneath me, like the marketing manager, say, hey, what's going on? Like how can we solve this? So it's this whole thing of like accountability and taking ownership of the issues. But you can't just wash your hands of something just because you hired someone else to do it. Like you outsourced it. So it's no longer a problem. This is something where, like in the real world, as far as like supply chains, you have people, like things being made in, sweat factories, like overseas, and people, like companies seem to wash their hands of these issues, like, oh yeah, it's part of our supply chain, but it's not our problem. Like, yeah, we pay this company to create these textiles for us, and yeah, they may or may not use slave labor or like child labor, but I mean, that's far down into our, like that's really early into our supply chain. That's not really something that we can control, and it's not our problem. Like that's not taking extreme ownership. Extreme ownership is understanding that, hey, we actually have a backbone, and we will not stand for slave labor or treating anyone within our supply chain with like unhumanely, and dealing with it that way. For example, Jocko makes items all in the United States because of that exact reason, that's one of the reasons. But yeah, like just taking extreme ownership. So that's one of the other aspects. So just to recap, so you have the 4 laws of combat, cover and move, keep it simple, which is regarding like communication, prioritize and execute, decentralized command. Those are the 4 laws. Then you have 2 supporting concepts, the dichotomy of leadership, that it's not really like a steadfast thing. It's a slider. Sometimes you might need more of something, less of something, more ego, less ego. Or no, I don't really want to say more ego, like some more confidence, and less ego, whatever. And then the second supporting thing is take extreme ownership of problems. Internal problems to your group, your unit, your organization, and external problems, like people that you're working with or that you may be working with. And because that's a part of cover and move. So yeah, that's that. The 4 laws of combat and the 2 supporting concepts, or 2 components of leadership. So now I will go into this last part here, which is, I guess, 12 points about how to succeed as a new leader. I'm not going to talk about all of these, but I won't go into detail about all these. I'll list them. So the first one is humility. Yeah, I mean, of course, you don't want an egotistical new leader. Don't act like you know everything, because you don't. Listen, ask for advice and heed it. Treat others with respect. Take ownership of failures and mistakes. Again, take ownership. Pass credit for successes up and down the chain. And what that means is pass credit for success for the people below you. Like if the people below you are doing exceptional, like acknowledge that. If the people above you, okay. So like if the people below you are doing exceptional things, don't just say, oh yeah, I'm doing exceptional things, and not acknowledge the people beneath you. Like say, yeah, John Doe beneath me, like in our marketing team, is doing exceptional. Or if the people above you are doing exceptional things, don't just say, oh yeah, I'm doing exceptional things to the people beneath you. Like say, yeah, the owner is doing this great stuff. Like properly acknowledge and pass the proper credit, whether it's going up or down, like the command hierarchy. Work hard, of course. No one wants a lazy leader, and the community does not deserve a lazy leader. have integrity. So do things the right way, ethically, even when no one is watching. Be balanced. That's that dichotomy. The extreme actions and opinions are usually not good. Be decisive. When it comes to when it comes time to make a decision, make one. Build relationships. So cover and move. And then lastly, just get the job done. You're there to get a job done. Like, you got onboarded as a leader to perform a task or a duty, whether it's a community manager, a chief operating officer, a developer, I don't know, a regular member, although that's not really a leadership role. Like, if you're just a straight green community member. But yeah, like, you got tasked to do a job. So at the end of the day, you need to get the job done. What he says here is the purpose of a leader to lead a team in accomplishing the mission. If you don't accomplish the mission, you failed as a leader. Performance counts. So yeah, these are just the 12 different things. It's a good checklist. If you become a new leader, I guess you can refer back to this and think of these 12 things. Like, okay, I just need to make sure to open up my ears and listen more. I need to be balanced with my decision. I can't be too extreme. I need to be humble. I can't act like I know everything. Treat people respectfully. I know sometimes it's useful to have these, like a checklist. Some of these things are pretty straightforward and common sense, depending on how you were raised, but some of these things are less intuitive. So I just wanted to share this. And then you have the last exercise, the last two exercises. And then here are the sources. So this was a pretty long video, and I am likely not going to be chopping it up. I'll just keep it as is, but I will create different timestamps inside the comment section, and I'll link the Academy server. I'll link the Haze Studio server. Yeah, I just love leadership, so I just decided to spend my Saturday morning, recording this video. I'm the founder of Haze Studios. My name is Haze. And yeah, what else do I need to put out there? I would say I have a podcast. Haze Studios has a podcast, and we have one episode out with Dwyer, which is the unit leader for a Arma 3 Milsim community that's doing some really cool stuff. I would recommend listening to that because we talk about some really neat things. That conversation goes on for 2 hours and 40 something minutes, but I think all of it's pretty useful and insightful. But that's just me personally. I would say that if you need a consultant, then hit me up, and I'm willing to help provide leadership advice and training to your community. But the only way at this point, the only way I'm willing to do that is if I get paid, because I've graduated college, and my free time, I don't really have as much free time as I would like because of work and some other stuff. So in order to make it really worth it, I would need to get paid. So I know in the gaming community, people don't really like to pay people for stuff. They expect things to be for free. But yeah, if someone wants me to come and talk with their leadership team or help with some leadership problems, then contact me on Discord, and we could get that ball rolling. Otherwise, yeah, if you stuck through this, I appreciate it. Hopefully you learned a couple things here. I just wanted to share some of these concepts because I think, I know for a fact that some of these would be useful to some communities that I've worked with in the past. They were useful for communities I've worked with in the past, and they would be useful for future communities going forward. So, yeah, I appreciate it. Comment any type of stuff that you think I should do better. Comment your opinions about anything that you noticed here, things that you like, things that you didn't like. Provide some solid feedback. I would appreciate it. But yeah, thank you, and have a good one.